as the number one NBA skills coach in the world, I want to start with a question that is kind of not directly talking about basketball, but overall. Is there a skill that you wish you developed earlier in your life?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's and it's a weird one. I call it unbreakable faith, and what I mean by that is, when I was early on in my life, I dreamt of playing college basketball, the NCAA tournament, and I always thought that was a realistic possibility. And I dreamed of playing in the NBA, but I never really thought that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And so, crazy story. Eighth grade year, I'm in Vegas at a basketball tournament. One of my good friends and one of my sister's teammates, my sister's team was playing, in Vegas as well. And they're down there, and she comes running back to the room, and she's like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "I was just flirting with this guy that said he's going to go to the NBA," and I was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? I'm like thinking like, we're over here in eighth grade. Who is this guy that's telling you that as an eighth grader he knows he's going to the NBA? And sure enough, she said Isaiah Thomas, and I was like, Isaiah Thomas? You talking about like little Isaiah Thomas? Like,
Right.
back in, eighth grade, I was probably, I don't know, 5'7". He was probably 5'4".
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, he's really good at basketball. He played for Friends of Hoop up in Seattle, was really, really good. But I was like, he's too short to make the NBA. And so then, we obviously both go and have successful high school careers. Believe it or not, I was player of the year in Missouri and won a state championship. And, then we go to college, and Belmont, where I played at, we actually played against UW, University of Washington, where he played. And I remember at that time, like, people were like, he might have a chance to go play pro. And I was like, man, like, what did he believe that I didn't believe? And sure enough, he was a 60th pick in the draft, went on to be an all NBA, all star player, and had a great NBA career. And so that's a skill I wish I had. I wish I had that unbreakable faith, that like almost unrealistic belief, because I feel like that inner belief is what fuels everything. If you think something's possible, you're willing to put in the work, then you can chip away at it and get kind of unexpected results. Whereas if you don't think it's possible, a lot of times you maybe you still work towards it, but whatever reason, it feels like you never get there. And so I think that that's the one skill that I wish I would have developed earlier on, and it's something that I do have in what I do. I remember being in high school and starting my training career, and then in college, and I was telling people I'm going to train some of the best players in the world, and everyone's like, "What do you mean?" Like, and I remember then I got David Lee, my first NBA client, as a sophomore in college, and I remember everybody, all my teammates in the locker room were like, "Wait, you're about to go on a private jet with David Lee to New York to train, and he's paying for you to do all this, and you get to go like to NBA games for free?" And I was like, "Yeah," and like I'm not stopping anytime soon. So that would be the thing I would start with.
Yeah, man. There's so many ways we can go with that. Your journey has been really, really fascinating to dive into. And I think you're right. If there's no belief behind it, you're 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So like you're still trying to go towards it, but you're not really committed to the level that you say you're committed at. I had a George Mumford on. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a mental performance coach for Michael Jordan, Kobe, and a bunch of others. And there's this delusional optimism that comes with professional athletes that it's seemingly more absurd than any other field in the world, and that belief has to be foundational. Do you think you have to be a little bit arrogant almost to like that extent of belief?
It's crazy because I got a new book coming out, and the new book talks about Jayson Tatum's high school journey.
Yeah.
And one of the chapters, actually, in one of the sections, starts with me talking about trying to turn a 13-year-old Jayson Tatum into an arrogant asshole. And talking about how his mom was like, "No, I want my baby to be a humble, like good kid." And at his junior year in high school, he was in the state championship, and they lost. And part of the reason was he was deferring too much to his teammates. He still had probably a 30-point game or a 25-point game, but for whatever reason, there was a stretch that the other team went on a run that he did not touch the ball. I believe he shot maybe like 2 free throws in the last like 13 minutes of the game, which in high school, as he ended up being the next year the national Gatorade Player of the Year. That's unheard of, that you go that long, that long of a stretch without demanding the ball and stuff like that. And so after he lost that game and got upset, I remember her walking right over to me and was like, I don't care what you got to do, I'm with it. Like, I don't ever want to see that ever again. Like, turn him into an asshole. And the next year, really cool, Jayson dominated the playoffs, like dominated the playoffs. But then the state championship game came, and I was like, hey, you remember last year? Like, this is your last chance to hang a banner in your high school career. And he actually outscored the other team in the first half, which showed you how dominant he was. He had, I think, a 42-point game or something, which broke the state record. And those are the moments that I think of when you say the kind of like that arrogance, that cockiness, that swagger, whatever it is that internal belief to believe that, I've got what it takes to get it done, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get it done as well.
Yeah, I mean, but you had it too. It just wasn't necessarily for basketball once you got to a certain point. Even though, because you had some of the best shooting in college, I think, ever. You were doing better than Steph.
17th all time. I'm hanging on. I'm like, man, there's going to be four more people come up. I'm going to be outside the top 20. But yeah, no, I mean, you have to believe in yourself. You know what I mean? I think I tell people all the time, especially with basketball players, like, I'm like, you can't hope that it works out. You can't oh man, I hope it works out. You have to know it's going to work out.
Yeah.
If you're getting ready to shoot a shot, you can't be like, man, I hope this goes in. You have to be like, this is going in. And, you see Steph Curry, shoot shots and turns around. He's jogging back on defense while the ball is still in the air. And you're going, where does that confidence come from? And I'm like, that confidence is the reason that Steph Curry has become one of the greatest players of all time, because when he was at Davidson, he wasn't supposed to be doing the things he did in the NCAA tournament. When he was in the NBA, he wasn't supposed to become, the unanimous MVP and the two-time MVP and the four-time champion. But for whatever reason, he had this internal swagger, this belief, this confidence, this cockiness, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, that just said, hey, I'm that guy. I got this.
Yeah. Everyone has it. You had it, but you had it in a different field. You had it almost in business in a way. Like you said, like you were going to work with the best of the best. Now you're working with the best of the best. You're the number one in the world. I mean, you published a book in high school even, and to see the new book coming out now, like, do you think that everyone has it? They just have to figure out where that internal belief needs to be directed? Because you had it. It just wasn't basketball necessarily.
Yeah, I think that there's different levels of it. Like, Mike Tyson has that quote where he was like, I was a born killer. You guys are manufactured killers. And
Yeah.
I think that that's true to some extent. Like, obviously, the way you're raised, the environment that you're in, also just your upbringing. Like, I'm a big believer in self-confidence comes from building evidence.
Hmm.
And when you stack enough evidence that says, wow, I'm really good at this, or I have a chance at this, then you start believing it. But the reverse is true as well. If you keep falling short, if you keep, giving up on the promises that you set for yourself, if you keep shortcutting ways,
Hmm.
you're not going to build confidence in yourself because you've let yourself down over and over again. And so that's a big reason why I wrote the book was I believe that everyone has untapped levels that they can get to. I don't think that I have the same peak as a Joel Embiid, because of my height, my size, my whatever. But I do believe that there were untapped levels that if I was able to tap into at an earlier age, that I probably could have played in the NBA. And I believe that there's a lot of people that are, in situations where maybe they're struggling financially,
Hmm.
or they're struggling with their weight, or they're struggling in a relationship, and there's a lot of actions and decisions that they could easily make that would completely change their life. The saying of like you're one decision away from a completely new life is so true, but you can't just make a decision and be like, all right, I want this. It's like, okay, I want this. Here's where I am. Here's where I want to get to. What is the gap that exists? Then I have to ask myself, what actions are causing that gap to exist? Then
Hmm.
I have to go in and go further and say, why have I not made those changes in the past? Because the truth is, most of us have wanted to make those changes for a long time. And then you have to find a compelling enough a reason to actually finally go all in. And I think that's where most of us slack off is the all in portion. I think most of us kind of are like, man, I really want that. But then when we find out what we have to do, and then we ask ourselves, are we willing to do that? We're like, maybe I don't want it as bad as I thought I wanted it. And so that's what you have to do. You have to really find, deep motivations to fuel you and drive your action so that you finally shrink that gap between where you are and where you want to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people, and I'm curious from you working with the best of the best, and you've been in it for so long. Do you think most of them are driven for what they want or what they don't want, if that makes sense? Like coming from a place of scarcity or coming from a place of abundance? Where do you think most people live?
I think there's a million different ways to fuel yourself. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hitting rock bottom. You hit rock bottom and you're so fed up with rock bottom that you say, you know what? My back's against the wall. The only way to go is forward. There's other times where, there's a little chip on your shoulder. Maybe it's an athlete where everyone, ranked them really low and didn't give them enough credit and didn't think that they were very good. And you see that fuel them throughout their entire career. There's other times where people are born with this drive of like, I want to make something of myself. And so I think it comes from so many different reasons. I remember when I was in high school, believe it or not, my 16th birthday, I got a car, and it was a $300 car. My dad, literally gave the guy $300 and a box of steaks. He was a butcher. And I wanted a new car. And that's what started my journey of being an entrepreneur. When I was younger, obviously I did the cutting grass and shoveling snow and dog sitting and literally anything I could do to make money. But that was more so for like getting candy and baseball cards and stuff like that. But when I wanted a new car, I was like, I got to think bigger and better. And it was from that needing a new car. And so that fueled my drive to wanting to become a entrepreneur that wrote the book at, 17 years old. So I do think that there's a ton of things that motivate us. I think the one thing that you have to have is something that's driving action. I think if you just are comfortable and settling, then you're never going to get to a new level. And when I say comfortable, I don't mean comfortable in a good way. I think that's the ultimate thing we're all striving for, is to be super comfortable in a great place. But I
Yeah.
think it's when you're comfortable in a bad place, that's when that insecurity, the stress and the struggles really eats at you and ultimately shapes your narrative of your life.
1000%. One thing I think I want to say that you're on the same side as me with this, but I think a lot of people think that they need more when a lot of it is just eliminating things that they're already doing. And I think that we don't want to believe that to some extent because it means that we're playing a role in our own suffering, I guess. But what do you think from the people that you've worked with, and you've worked with people outside of basketball as well? What do you think most people need to eliminate from their life to really reach that next level?
I mean, you laugh, and I've already held this up, but like literally the title of this book, it's crazy because when I was going through the writing process, my editor and the publisher, they were all telling me don't use a cuss word in the title. They're like, because then when you're promoting it, and a lot of, I have a lot of kids followers that follow me for basketball advice. They're like, maybe their parents won't want to buy it for them or whatever. And I was like, there is not a better way to get to the next level than to stop bullshitting yourself. And the reason is because I really do believe that we are where we are because of the actions and decisions we've made.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that some people, start at home plate and some people start at third base, and we're both required to get around the bases and get to home plate. I get that some people are dealt with better hands than others, but I believe that every hand has a potential to be a winner if you play it the right way. And I think that that's something that people don't realize is I'll have people all the time, well, yeah, Drew, well, I didn't grow up with this, or I didn't have that, or I'm not blessed with athletic talent, or I'm not blessed with height, and I'm like, listen, all of that, those are justifiable excuses. But if you let those define you, then you're going to be stuck. There are people that grew up with worse circumstances, that were shorter than you, that were less athletic than you, that came from more stress and more struggle, that found a way to get beyond those things and became financially free, became NBA athletes, became, in happy marriages, happy families. So I really always look at it and I'm like, man, if you can find one example of somebody that had it worse than you that made it out, then you can be that second example, and the truth is, if you really look hard enough, you'll find countless examples of
So
people that have overcome way more than you and have made it to way better places than you are. And probably there's some people that are living the exact dream life that you want that have had to come from way worse scenarios. It's just they were willing to make different decisions and actions, and that's why they're living the life they are, and you're not.
1000%. It's the core of this podcast. That's why there's the two after the you can, because like you're looking for evidence. I mean, we are going to get what we look for in this life. And most of the time, if you fight for your limitations, the prize you get is you get to keep them. And a lot of people are looking for reasons to reinforce their story that isn't so helpful for the life that they want. And uh, Yeah, a lot of people, we need to stop bullshitting ourselves. I think, like you said earlier, most people, we know what we need to do, but we get in our own way from doing it. And similar to the people that you worked with, there's a reason that people come to you because you hold them accountable to the standard that you set for them, that they set for themselves, and not one that was previous before they worked with you, right? I mean, that standard is really, how important is the standard that people set for themselves? Do you notice that they increase it when they work with you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I always tell people like the reason that my clients are in the NBA is because they put in the work. They've, put in work before I met them. They continue to work when I met them. So I always give them all the credit, but I always tell them too, I'm like the Wizard of Oz. I'm behind the curtain, I'm behind the scenes, and I'm giving them exactly what they need and exactly what they want. My job is to take them to levels they can't take themselves. And so I think that a lot of people, the problem is they never get themselves to their ultimate level on their own.
Yeah.
And so that's really what my job as a coach is, whether I'm helping a CEO, whether I'm helping an athlete, or whether I'm just helping somebody that, like my dad, who, wanted to lose weight and I helped him lose 90 pounds in a calendar year. It's the same system. It's all about, basically putting together a blueprint, then figuring out ways to kind of, shrink that blueprint into actionable steps, then enforcing the work, which I call the unseen hours, like putting in the work when no one's watching, and then the results will come. You know what I mean? But I do think it takes a certain mentality. It also takes a level of detail and discipline that most people just aren't comfortable with, and I think that that's the thing that holds back the majority of the people.
Yeah, I think people see it's either or. It's either you have talent or you have discipline. It's not both. Like there's not an and to it. Do you think from, I guess, from your experience from the beginning of your journey to now, do you think that your idea of talent versus hard work has changed, or where's your head at with that?
KD always used to say his favorite quote was like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I believe that like everyone has a certain level of talent. They just have to be able to get the most out of it. And
Mhm.
again, we have different levels of talent. There are some people that are just blessed with extreme talent where, there's people that are blessed with natural talent that would take them farther than my hard work would take them,
Yeah.
but I do believe that, it's one of those things where I think about my grandma back in the day. My grandma, she was a very frugal person, but also was very appreciative of everything. And I
Mhm.
remember going in as a little kid and not understanding why she used to have like a clip at the end of the toothpaste, and then she would roll
Nah.
it and
Yep.
clip, roll it and clip. And I always think like my grandma got every ounce of toothpaste out of that, tube. Most people aren't like that.
Mhm.
Most people don't get everything they can out of the talent that they have. And again, I think in athletics does require some level of athleticism, and and height plays a part, and a strength plays a part, which some of those things are just, you're born with a certain set of cards, that does kind of put a level on maybe your ultimate ceiling.
Mhm.
But I think the problem is most people don't raise their floor high enough, and most people don't touch their ceiling. And I think that's what our goal is, one, find something you can do at a high level, and then two, pour into that until you get to a level where you can live the life that you want to live.
Yeah, your grandma seems like a really intelligent person. I heard in a recent podcast you did, probably a couple years ago, actually. She said that you'll never have everything that you want, but you'll always have more than you need. And I heard that, and I don't never heard it really phrased that way, and I really love that phrase. I'm curious how your I guess your desire for more has that developed as your career has grown.
First off, that's always been my favorite quote. I remember my
Love it.
grandma pulling me aside, and it was when I started getting some success. I started financially, got rolling, started getting a lot of publicity. Followers were going up, opportunities were going up, and she was just like straight up with the happiest face was like, "Hey, just remember, you're never gonna have everything you need, but you're always have more. You're never have everything you want, but you're always have more than you need." And I was like, "That is gold."
Gold.
And so the reason that I kind of love that quote so much is because I think it does snap you back into reality. Like when you said, "Do you want more?" Of course, there's always a desire for more.
Mhm.
But I've never fallen into the trap of needing more. I've wanted more, but I haven't needed more. Like the other day, I was sitting at a Chicago, I think it was a Chicago Bulls game, and I was 3 rows, behind the bench and sitting there watching the game. And at the end of the game, it was a blowout game, and so we were just, I was just sitting there chilling. I was probably watching another game on my phone, to be honest with you. That's what I do
Yeah.
most of the time when a game gets bad. And there was a family sitting 1 row up from me, and there was, I don't know, four to six people. I don't know how many of them were actually directly with them. And I remember the dad being like, "This is pathetic. I can't believe we spent $2,000 on this." And for me, I'm getting paid to be at the NBA game. I got free tickets. I got, but it snapped me back to when I was younger. And for my birthday present, I used to get a ticket to an NBA game. And
Mhm.
for my Christmas present, I got a flight to the
Right there.
NBA game because I grew up in St. Louis. There's no St. Louis team. And so all year round, all I did was look forward to that one NBA game. And I thought for that family, I was like, wow, here I am. I'm just watching another game on my phone, and I'm just like, wow, this game sucks. Who cares? Because I'm going to go to another game the next day, and the next day, and the next day. But for that family, not only did they invest 2,000 hard-earned dollars, but that also was the moment that they've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
And it's a moment they were planning on talking about for the next month and sharing and bragging about how awesome it was. But it wasn't awesome that night because that one of the teams didn't show up to play, and it led to a blowout, and it was a sloppy game, and I was like, man, that sucks. So, I mean, to answer your question, I do find myself striving for more because I'm competitive. I also find myself wanting more just because I want to be able to provide the best life for myself, my family, my friends. And also, I know the more that I get, the more I can give back. Um, but I don't find myself needing more. I'm never in a place where I'm comparing. You remember, most of my best friends are 100 millionaires or billionaires, and they're
Yeah.
all super famous. So, like, if I started comparing myself to my friend circle, it just wouldn't. I'd be a losing game because to the majority of my friends back home, I'm like the wealthiest person they know.
Yeah.
But to my best friends that are my clients, I'm like the brokest person they know. So, it's just, it would be a losing game for me to compare. And I think it's a losing game for everybody to compare because there's always going to be somebody that's taller, better looking, richer, wealthier, better car, better watch, whatever. But there's also a lot of people that pray for the things that you take for granted. So I just always just appreciate all the blessings that are in my life and continue to try to work my hardest and do the right things so that more blessings come into my life, my family's lives, and all my friends' lives.
Yeah, man. When I heard that quote from your grandmother, I was like, dude, like that's I love it. I love it because it's so true. The anticipation of achievement is almost more exciting than the actual achievement of itself or the acquiring of something most of the time. The anticipation right before is what's way more exciting than when it actually happens because we're usually let down. We have way too high of expectations for things. Like you said, you have a lot of your friends are 100 millionaires. Like you've created for probably 5 billion plus now in contracts now. With the people that you have worked with, is there any noticeable characteristics or traits or skill sets that you notice in people that really set them apart from others?
I always tell people that when I take on a client, I look for three things. And the first thing is they have to love the game of basketball.
Mm,
If you don't love something, I feel like you're never going to reach that next level, that
yeah,
untapped level. Because if you don't love it, when times get tough, you're going to shut down. When extra work is required, you're not willing to put it in. When the little moments of separation, you have a chance for those, you just don't take advantage of them. So you got to love the game. Second thing is they got to love coaching, criticism, feedback. They have to crave that improvement because in order for them to get to levels they've never got to on their own, they need somebody else to be able to help unlock that level. And so the only way to do that is by coaching them up and them not only accepting coaching and criticism and feedback, but craving it.
seeking
Because
it.
the
Yeah,
more they crave it, the more they're going to be bought in. The more they're bought in, the more that they're going to get the results. And then the third thing is they have to put in the work. And putting in the work to me is all about the unseen hours. Like, what do you do when no one's watching? I believe that the magic happens in the unseen hours. I really do. I believe the magic happens when no one's watching. I think the magic happens, when people start putting in the work that they used to avoid. I think that's the secret sauce. And so when I say what are the separate, I think those three things. I think if you have a love for anything, if you have this curiosity, this craving for more knowledge, and you're willing to take feedback and criticism along the way, and constantly looking to refine and improve the way that you're attacking it. And if you're willing to put in not just the required work, but also the unrequired work, I feel like that's a winning formula in anything, not just athletics.
100%. I had a guy named Anthony Trucks on probably last year, and he speaks about how you'll shine in the light when you do the work in the dark, and I think a lot of people are avoiding that for sure. And in the new book too, you speak about micro shifts, personal audits, a bunch of others. That it's really powerful stuff. What do you feel is like the most pivotal or foundational things in your work that really helps people get to the next level?
To be honest with you, I think it's a combination of everything. But the reason I put together the book was because I broke it down into a system. So let
Mm,
me outline the system for you, just to give you a little sneak preview. So basically, the first thing is it's an audit. You're auditing the bullshit in your life. You're auditing why you are where you are. Then after you audit that, then you have to decide where you're going. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously it's like you can't just jump in an Uber and be like, all right, let's go. And they're like, where are we
where are we going?
going? You know what I mean? So you have to know where you're going. So that's the next thing, is identifying the gap between where you are, because now you know because you did the audit, and
Mm,
where you want to get to. After you do that, then you have to obviously make a decision. The decision is, I am now have a compelling enough reason to attack whatever I want to do to shrink that gap between where you are and where you want to get to. Then after that, it's about building a blueprint. There's I mean, that's the gold in the book. I'm really excited. I just filmed the masterclass for it today. That
yeah.
everyone that buys the book, everyone that like pre-orders the book and buys the book gets the masterclass for it, and it is awesome. You know what I mean? So everyone that's already pre-ordered, they're going to get it actually next week. I'm super pumped for it, but it gives them the step-by-step, literally like the step-by-step formula that I use with my clients to build a blueprint that breaks down everything into actionable steps that they actually will make. Then after that, it's putting in the work. I talk a lot about some strategies to actually get you yourself to actually put in the work that's required. And then there's a refinement process, which is just constantly reflecting back, asking yourself what's working, what's not, what can I do better. And then the last thing is just the results. And so I literally break it down like that. But obviously, there's a ton of
Of course.
strategy and a whole system. But that's what it's all about. I mean, it's literally that level of detail that helps people win. And, I've helped a lot of people win in whatever they're after. And I'm super excited, not only for the book launch, but I'm excited for, the testimonials years from now and the transformations years from now, when people are like, yo, I picked up your book because of the title. And then it sat on my shelves for far too long. And then one day I walked in from work, I was pissed off, or I got in an argument with my wife and I was pissed off, or I got cut from the team and I was pissed off, or I had a bad game and I was pissed, whatever it was. And something just made me pick up the book. And once I picked it up, I couldn't set it down. And in the book, which is weird because most books are just kind of like, you go through and you read them and stuff like that. But my book is it actually has like a fill in the blank. So everything is like, you can fill in the blanks and stuff like that. So you're actually filling out your blueprint. You're going through and auditing your life in real time, so that when you're done with the book, you actually have the plan to turn your life around. So, that's what I'm most excited about, is just being able to share the system that's worked for so many other people. And I know it's going to work for the reader as well.
Yeah, I think the name makes sense too. I'm glad that you kind of pushed against what people are telling you, because it's the first step to making any change, is being honest with yourself about why you are where you are. And if you don't stop bullshitting yourself, I mean, you're going to continue. Even if you do move forward, you're going to continuously face roadblocks that you faced in the past because you weren't honest with yourself. And I think that that's a core foundation with writing the book. I know that there's a lot of eliminating when you're writing a book. You can probably start with 500 pages, you get it down to 250, whatever it is. What was eliminated from the book that you wish you could have added, or is there anything?
There's not anything I wish I would have added. To be honest with you, that was the big thing that I wanted to do. I've read so many self-help books.
Mm,
And the thing that I love about self-help books is I feel like the good ones, you always take away a thing or two that maybe you didn't have before. It might be a quote, it might be a strategy, it might be, something that you can use somewhere in your life.
mhm.
The problem is, I feel like most books are 300, 400 pages, and 250 of them are fluff just to fill out the pages.
Yeah.
And so I started with 100,000 words. Then it went up to like 100, probably 30,000 words. And then that shrunk down and shrunk down and shrunk down. I kept trimming the fat. I
Yeah.
would go through and I'd literally I'd hand a chapter to my girlfriend and be like, hey, I want you to highlight everything that you think is like gold. Like, what would you take away? And then I'd look and I'd be like, if there is a page or two where there's no highlights, then that needs to be eliminated.
Mm.
Why would I want to waste somebody's time and energy just to fill up pages? And so that was something also that I battled with the publisher. I was like, hey, listen, I want everything to be short and I want it to be in bite size, because my main audience, my core audience, is basketball people that don't read. Like, it was funny the other day, Zach LaVine was like, bro, I literally never read.
Yeah.
And he's like, I couldn't set the book down. Like, I gave him an early copy. Like, I could. He's like, not only because I know you, but he's like, the thing that I love is like everything is just like, you have each section is like 2 pages. So if
Mm.
I want, I can just read 2 pages and I can go eat and then come back to it. And, or if I want to skip throughout the book and go back and refer to something, I don't have to read a 20-page chapter. So, and everything is a story that builds up and then it has a punch and then it has a call to action. So, it's not like me just saying like, hey guys, this is how I got to where I'm at. It's like, hey guys, this is how you can get to where you want to be. And every story really hits home and drives home a message. And then there's an actionable step at the end of it that, circles back to your life, your experience, which is all that really matters.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Like, a lot of the time we think we need more, but a lot of it is just subtracting and getting to the really important stuff. And I'm glad that's the approach that you took. I mean, you've been at this, I guess, personal growth, and whether you call it that or not, for a long time. I mean, from 12 to 22, you gave up sweets, you never drank, never smoked. Like, you've had a real concrete discipline for seemingly most of your life. And it seems like that was what people knew you as for training and stuff as well. Do you think that, or I guess, how can people develop that? And do you think that was always just a trait that you had, or is that something that you developed early on too? Did it come easy to you, or? Yeah.
I mean, again, I think a lot of it is just somebody starting small. Like, I call it starter steps, a simple, obtainable action that you actually make, and then build momentum. So I'll give you an example. The sweet thing, you touched on it. Like, I gave up sweets at 12 years old and did not have sweets until I was done playing college basketball at 22. I'm 35 years old right now. I've never tasted alcohol. Turned down $10,000 for one shot of alcohol. How do you develop that level of discipline? Well, let me tell you how it starts. It starts by one day you say, hey, I'm going to go 1 month without eating sweets. And know what that starts with? The decision that night when you're craving ice cream to say, I'm not having ice cream. And then the next day you say, hey, guess what? I'm not having ice cream. And then the next day you go out with your friends and all of your friends are at this birthday party and everybody's having cake because you're a 12-year-old and everybody eats cake on every birthday. And you say, you know what? I'm good. I actually have a picture that's so cool. I can't wait to story tell from the book and stuff like that. It's me as a little kid and I'm literally like this on my own birthday cake and I'm like holding up my hands like I'm good. But like, that's what it takes. And then 3 days, then 4 days, then 5 days, and 6 days. And again, I believe it's easier to be 100% all in than it is to be 90% all in. There's literally a section in the book that talks about it, but it's, I am a big believer that if you do something all in, it's just a lot easier. Like, for me, I was like, no sweets. So then every time somebody said, hey, you want sweets? Nope. Why? I don't eat sweets. Whereas a lot of my friends would be like, all right, I'm going to give up drinking. And I'm like, okay, so you're not drinking at all? Well, no, I'm just going to cut down on drinking. Well, then every time they go out, they have to decide, is this a night that I drink or is this a night I don't drink? And then if they do have one drink, then 2 things might happen. One, now they have another decision to make. Is this a 1 drink night or is this a scene from The Hangover night? And 2, the other decision they have to make is, are they going to go back to their promise? A lot of times you say, I'm just going to have 1 drink, but then the mentality goes, I already broke my promise. I might as well just start over tomorrow or start over Monday or start over on the first of the month, instead of going right back and saying, you know what, I made 1 mistake. Now I got to snap back and go right back and get back on track. But most people don't have the willpower. And so I just say, eliminate the willpower, eliminate the motivation. That stuff wears off. Like, just create the system that you talked about earlier, create standards for yourself and lock in.
Yeah. It seems you're more based out of identity than you are decision. Like, I don't drink. That is my identity.
I think everything was a decision that feeds into that, because I didn't like wake up and one day and be like, my identity said I didn't want sweets. Like, trust me, I was fucking craving sweets back then. You know what I mean? And there were plenty of times where, other people were out drinking and having fun. And again, I still had fun, but I was locked in my room and working on my books and stuff like that, in college. And there were plenty of nights where I'm like, man, I wish that I just wasn't so disciplined. Or I wish that, but trust me, like those same friends that went out and had fun on that Friday night are the ones that beg me for tickets. Hey, I got kids that want to meet and greet with your clients. Like, and so like I look back and I'm like, I think I made a lot of decisions that ended up becoming my identity. And I think that's what happens. I think the decisions and actions you make and the choices you decide on, those things become who you are. So I think it fuels it. I think it's like the little stream that feeds into the big ocean, but like it really is. It's like you have to get momentum by constantly doing that. And I talked about it earlier, like build proof, build evidence. There was evidence that when I set my mind to something, I could do anything, and that fueled everything that I've ever done.
Yeah, yeah. When you have that evidence, it's really easy. It's really easy to continue on that train because you already have proof. Something I find a paradox about you, and I'm really curious how your relationship has developed with it. But in I think high school and college, your last year was your best year for both, I believe. I don't know for sure on statistics, but you weren't so results driven. It was kind of more just going with the flow. You were having more fun. You seemed like one of the most disciplined people I've been able to speak to, and probably most people speak to. But you have this ease and not so much stress associated with you. How do you handle both of those? Because I feel like a lot of people see is more resilience equals more stress, more pressure is more stress. But it doesn't seem like that for you.
No, it's funny. My mom always jokes around. She's like, Drew, if I ever win the lottery, I'm handing you the ticket and you're going to act like you won, because she's like, I could not handle the pressure of everyone asking me for stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, for whatever reason, like, she's like, you just are able to handle everyone's demands, everyone's wants, and I'm always like, yeah, that's totally fine. Because for me, I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to, just stick with what I feel like is the right decision. And truthfully, I don't feel the pressure of doing what other people ask of me,
Mm,
and so I don't know the best way to answer your question besides saying that, like, I don't stress out, because it goes back to the quote of like, we have so much that we have to feel blessed for. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, like my little, 10-year-old self, if they knew, like, if my 10-year-old self got to like meet me, my 35-year-old self, they
yeah.
would be the biggest fan. They'd be like, you have the coolest job in the world. Like, they would watch and consume all my content. They would subscribe to, all of my podcasts. They would, download my app. They would train with it every day. They would literally follow all the decisions that I did, because they'd be like, I'm not going to eat sweets. I'm not. So like the fact that my 35-year-old self would be like my 10-year-old self, like
Dream.
superstar, rock star. It's like, why would I feel stress? And again, there are things that, that come with life, but I just have really looked at them from a different place. I had a really cool conversation with my mom. There was one time where, um, we were talking about, if you could change one day in your
Mm,
life, one decision, one thing in your life, what would that like day be? And we were talking about like, and I was like, Mom, would it be something with like your mom, my grandma? Would it be something like maybe a day that she goes and gets checked so that the cancer didn't get to her, so that, she passed away? And my mom said, no, I wouldn't want to bring her back to life. Like, trust me, selfishly, I would love to spend more time with her. I miss her more than anything, but she got to pass away peacefully. And if I changed that and I brought her back to life, and then something happened to her, or maybe like one of her kids didn't outlive her and she had to live with that pain, or something changed, I would feel terrible. And I thought from a mature standpoint, I was like, wow, like most of us would selfishly go back and change something just because we wouldn't think for the other people. And so
yeah.
to me, I always, that's just how I operate. I operate on fact over feelings. I operate on, there's a lot of good that comes with life. There's a lot of bad that comes with life. As long as you manage what's on your plate, then you can keep moving forward. And so, yeah, I just don't let stress get to me. that's the biggest thing. Trust me, there is a ton of stressful things that are on my plate. I just don't let them stress me. And I think it's all about how you handle what's on your plate. And the goal is to eat, so you should love having more on your plate. To be honest with you.
I love that perspective. Yeah, man, you get to choose the way that you take it. I mean, like you said, previous you would have asked for all the work that you have now. So how can you stress about it? But I mean, the thing that I keep going back to, you're the number one skills trainer in the world when it comes to basketball. But so much of what you're doing is not so much skills, but it's like mental skills. It's like it's the foundation. What do you think most people miss out when it comes to mindset, or what do you think they're overlooking? What do you think they're not prioritizing?
I mean, I think the first thing is that, I always say slumps on the court start off the court,
Mhm.
slumps in business start in the house. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's like, I think that people don't think that they are really good at compartmentalizing things when the truth is we really all suck at it.
Mhm.
If there is one stressor, if there is one thing that is dragging your life down, it can drag the rest of your life down. And so I don't think many people confront their challenges head on. They would rather be coddled than be challenged. And I think that's the biggest thing that I always stress to people is like, listen, exactly what you need to do to overcome those things, but most people just aren't willing to actually go through the hard work. And I feel like it is a lot harder to live with those stresses than it is to actually deal with them. But for whatever reason, people choose to keep living with them. And so that's what I would say. The mentality is just like, hey, listen, man, like I get that, when I'm talking to my clients, like I get that this is a real stressor, this is a real struggle, but like, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to change about it? Because, you hanging on to it is not helping. It's hurting. So let's figure out a solution for it. And I think when people are solution based focused instead of problem based focused, I think that's when they start really winning.
100%. I think the antidote to anxiety is action. And action, getting people into action is like the most difficult part because no one feels like doing most things, but most of the things that you want out of life come from doing the things you don't feel like doing in the moment. So that's a
100%
tough
agree.
paradox.
100%
Tough
agree.
paradox. There's one last question I want to ask to you that I ask every guest. My question to you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
That's interesting because, I'm constantly trying to evolve and I'm constantly trying to look for, like you said, new strategies, new approaches while constantly doing whatever. I think the thing that I'm trying to, I guess you said unlearn, correct? Or is how to stop justifying the the striving for more. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is I've always looked at the biggest priority in my life is my family. I love them. I love spending time with them. It brings me the most happiness. Yet when I look at my calendar, I go back to St. Louis once every quarter and spend 3 days with them. And even during the 3 days, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm on podcasts and interviews and emails. And so I carve out, 6 hours a day for them during those times. And so I look back and I say, man, as much as from the outside it looks like I'm winning, and as much as from the inside as it feels like I'm winning, normally that means, oh wow, if it from the outside it looks like you're winning, the inside it feels like you're winning, you're winning. The truth is, I'm like, man, there's something I'm missing because I feel like real winning is being able to spend as much of your possible life, as much as your time dedicated to things that bring you the most happiness. And when I do an audit of my time, that's not where mine is.
yeah.
So I'm trying to unlearn how to constantly to take on more, even though I know it's going to lead to great things. Understanding that, like, my priorities in time should really be with the priorities that bring me the most happiness, which is the simple things in life, like spending time with my family and friends. And I think it's something that I think all successful people go through.
Yeah.
When you look at the best athletes in the world, it is crazy. If you look at the goats, most of them have hardships, whether they're addicted to gambling or drugs, or they've gone through divorces, or, they have family members that no longer speak to them. And I don't want that. That's not winning to me. And so that's what I'm trying to unlearn is I'm trying to unlearn how to say yes to even great opportunities that are going to, move me closer to this even bigger and better version of myself so that I can say yes to the things that really matter most, which is spending time with the loved ones that I don't spend enough time with.
Yeah, I think like you said, the younger version of you, the child Drew, would have dreamed of having the opportunities that you have now. So to deny them almost feels like to deny that past version of yourself that what used to dream for those opportunities. And when you have so many coming at you, I would assume it's really hard to say no to them. Um, yeah, Drew, I love this conversation. Love what you're putting out. Of course, all the links to the book and your Instagram and everything else will be in the show notes. But is there anywhere you'd like to direct people?
No, that's it. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like the reason I wrote the book was to help people out. You know what I mean? I had so many people that they started to see what I did with my clients off the court mainly,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Wait, you're more of a therapist. You're more of a confident. You're more of a somebody that actually like is their life coach." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so then they started asking me about the strategies. They asked me about the system, and then I started helping them out, and I just saw myself being that person for so many people that I was like, you know what? Like I'm doing a disservice if I'm not, putting this into a system that allows everyone, whether they know me or not know me, whether they have access to me or don't have access to me, to be able to use these same principles and apply these to their life and, transform the way that so many other people have transformed. So, that's all I want. I want people to not only buy the book because I don't really care about that. And as you know, when authors sign publishing deals, you make like $1 a book. You don't make like there's some
It's
of my
not about
friends that will
making
hit me up and be like, "Hey, bro, I bought a book." I'm like, I appreciate that, but just know I get $1 of it. It's really like the thing that's going to be the thing that lights me up is not the dollar royalty, but the transformation stories that I get to hear. And so that's what I look forward to most is connecting with people after they've transformed their life using the book and the principles in it. And that'll be the ultimate, aha moment for me that the book was the right decision to make.
Yeah, 100%. It's like packaging your coaching in a way to get out to more people that don't have access. So
Of
I love it, man.
course.
Love it.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
Thank you.